most of the time these are highly functioning individuals. And so that's why you hire a coach, is what am I not picking up? What in my universe is in my blind spot? And from what I've heard, Pam is one of the best at this. And she does it in a way that really empowers and allows you to immediately take feedback in and get results.
Welcome to the Success Flow Podcast, where our mission is simple: to be better each day and relay our findings with other relentless humans defining success for themselves. If that sounds like you, let's begin.
All right, back at it with the Success Flow Podcast. We're trying to switch up the content a little bit, get a little creative, and we had an idea when going through a fantasy football draft is, what if we drafted our models of excellence for self-improvement, all the things we talk about in this podcast. So that's what we're doing. This is the Models of Excellence Fantasy Draft coming at you live. We're going to build some rosters out. What are you thinking? You had some good input on the players and kind of roster layout, Steven. Walk us through your mindset there.
I couldn't be more excited for this draft, man. This is such a cool idea. Models of excellence. Obviously, we're striving to be the best versions of ourselves. So I know I've got a good roster that I've taken some notes on, but let me break it down before we start getting into the draft. And we're going to kind of piggyback off of the fantasy football roster, since that's pretty hot topic right now, being a few weeks into the season. So QB, our position is going to be a CEO. Then we got running backs. You got your athlete and your head coach. And then our wide receivers is going to be your actor, musician, and creator. And then our kickers, an author, defense, a mindset coach. And then we have our wild card pick. And that can be anything or anybody that you want to pick up. So kick us off with your first pick of the draft.
That's our defense. That's in the defense slot. Free pick's a defense slot.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. You won the coin toss before we kicked it off, so go ahead and make your first pick, my friend.
Well, we're not going to go exactly in order, but let's kick it off with the CEO. This is going to be our quarterback of the team, going to be the head, and this was a tough pick for me. I had to go with Ray Dalio here, and that is my pick. He wrote the book Principles. We don't always typically, the hedge fund world is a little controversial, but Ray Dalio is such a great story to me because he lost a lot of wealthy people's money back in the early 80s when he thought he was riding on top, right? He thought he had it figured out. But what he did then is, during that failure, went back, studied world history, studied the cycles of historical economics of the entire world, how humans behave, and rebuilt to learn on that, and made decisions since then, building the it's the biggest hedge fund in the world. So that is my pick, Ray Dalio. His book Principles is also very aligned with everything we talk about. He runs his employees and hiring based on their personal principles, making sure they align with the organization, and really makes sure that, in that world, hedge funding isn't for everybody, or investing isn't for everyone, but he wants to make sure that it is their personal principles that align with his organization. And if there's a guy that I want leading the troops and keeping an idea of the entire world, as well as that individual values in mind, it's Ray Dalio. It's my pick.
That's a great pick. That's like the epitome of the win or learn mentality. Didn't work out early, learned a bunch of new stuff, and wildly successful. So good pick. All right, so we're going to do snake draft, meaning I'm going to get the next two picks, and then you'll follow me with two until we finish out our rosters. But I will follow your CEO, and I'm going to go with Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb.
Ah, nice.
So not only do I love Airbnb, my wife and I travel everywhere. Or when we travel anywhere, it's always Airbnb. But I've done some research on this guy. He's not that much older than us. And it's just a great story of how they got their start. It was a problem that they needed to solve, which most companies are out there starting to solve a problem. But it's just such a unique one and a massive disruptor in the hospitality space of where you can stay when you're in another city. So him and his roommate at the time, Joe Gebbia, who is also the co-founder of Airbnb, they were living in San Francisco in an apartment with like $1,000 to their name. And basically looked up a conference that was coming up in San Francisco, and it was like a week or two before the conference, and they're going on the website, and it says in bright, bold red letters, hotels sold out. And they just thought to themselves, like, there's a lot of people that are going to want to come to this conference that have not booked their hotels yet. And so we've got space in our living room. Let's just blow up an airbed and have some people book us the space here. And that's kind of where airbedandbreakfast.com, it was called back then, started. And it never stopped. I mean, I wouldn't say the company was bootstrapped because once the idea took form, they got some venture capital money pretty quickly. And not only is Airbnb massive, Brian Chesky's net worth is like $9.1 billion, and that's all great. But here's why I choose him on my roster, is because he's got an 8 out of 10 CEO rating from his team, from his employees. Of a company of that size, he's like one of the top CEOs ranked based on the culture that he provides within the business. And he could have been some guy who had $1,000 to his name, built a massive business, wildly successful, and been a complete asshole, but he doesn't seem to be that way. And I think he runs his business the right way. So I'm going Brian Chesky for my CEO pick.
Great pick. Awesome story. And that whole being rated that way by your team is it's probably pretty rare, unless, you know, the surveys are kind of weighted and kind of the deck is stacked for the company. That's a huge signal that he's doing right things. An excellent pick for the Models of Excellence Fantasy Squad.
All right, so I'm going to move on to I'm going to go to musician for my next pick. This is going to be my wide receiver pick, if you will. But I just love this guy, and he's the lead singer, songwriter for Imagine Dragons, Dan Reynolds. Dan Reynolds, man, like the way I see it is his music not only is fantastic, but because he writes so many of these songs, he is such a creative mind, and it's a lot of times about his life. And I just love musicians like that. Music's such a huge part of my life. And just being a creator and writing these things down and then putting them into out into the public and through tunes, whether you're playing instruments or singing or whatever, and their shows are amazing. But that song, Whatever It Takes, is by far, it's got to be top 3 song in my life that I just absolutely live by. And it's an ode to his own ambition. So Dan Reynolds is incredible. I've seen them live. They're a great show. And again, another guy who's not that much older than us and just doing big things. And what's funny, you know, our guy Jim Stevens from our Junto group, his wife Chantel, apparently I just found this out like last year. She went to high school with Dan Reynolds, and like she can text him whatever. So I might have to hit up Jim and Chantel and see if we can get a meetup going on one day. But anyway, Dan Reynolds is my musician, incredible talent, and what seems, I've never met him personally, but seems like a better person. So I'm throwing him on my roster as a musician.
Yeah, I can't hear Whatever It Takes without thinking of you and the OPPO Flow branding. That has definitely been impactful, and myself as well. Their music just gets the blood pumping, and I am not shocked that is your musician. Great pick. I'm probably gonna get some heat on this one as I got creative with my musician, and this is probably his 6th mention on the podcast. But you may not know, Jocko Willink is a musician.
No, he's not a musician.
Yeah.
No, really?
That he is.
Really?
That he is. And not only, he's on Apple Music, and he had a high school band named Time by Rollins. I think it was. That was the name of his high school band, but still jams out on the guitar, and I can't play the audio here, but I'll be sending you his music. He shreds the guitar, and he sings. And I was getting creative to make the most of my squad. Jocko Willink is my musician.
I can't knock it. That's like your running back, wide receiver guy, that utility guy, if you will. That's a great pick. I never would have thought to go that route in, like, you know, you don't think of Jocko Willink as a musician, but apparently he is, and so I have to check his stuff out. That's a good one.
In the Models of Excellent draft, he is.
I love it.
All right. Next on the roster, we are going to go with the mindset coach.
All
We'll
right.
go mindset coach. And for this one, I got to get this pick out there because I felt we may have some overlap here. We were concerned about this getting competitive and who's going to be on our teams, but I chose Tim Grover. And again, another mention on the pod, but Tim Grover was Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Dwayne Wade's, along with numerous other NBA basketball players, physical trainer, but stressed the importance of the mental game while training so that the game wasn't the game was easy compared to what Tim Grover put them through. Not only on that, he has expanded his coaching clients well into corporate, built a real brand for himself, and the book Relentless changed my life. I read it about once a year. You and I connected on that book as you were really diving into your personal development journey. And I just don't think that guy is going to make everyone around him better. And that's my mindset coach.
And of course, that's a great one. His books, Winning and Relentless, and all of the stuff that he talks about, and how he correlates the training aspect from basketball to mindset of anybody. So if you haven't read those books, they're great business books, life books that just teach you an insane mindset. But yeah, that's a great pick. Good one there. And we do talk about him a lot. I'm not surprised you took him, but I did have him on my list. So now I have to cross him off and get someone else in there. But all right. Am I up or are you up? I lost track.
I picked that one. Yeah, I did too. I did. Yeah,
you did too.
You're up.
Okay, so I'm up. All right. So I got to go with my mindset coach to follow yours, and I'm going to go with my guy Ed Milet. Ed Milet, saw him live speak in January here in Phoenix. Incredible speaker, and I'll be very honest. I did not know too much about Ed Milet a year ago, and I really started listening to what he's all about. Serial entrepreneur, and now a lot more. I could have probably put him into the creator space. Podcast, YouTube, public speaker, but his stories and author, his stories are just incredible, and it pulls on all the heartstrings of like you're crying at points, you're laughing at points, you get the chills, and he's just an incredible person. But I love Mindset Coach just because of the positivity. The Power of One More is the book that he wrote, and I love that mindset. I love the mentality of giving it one more shot. You never know what can happen, and always having that focus of, hey, you know what? I'm down and out, but I'm going to give it one more try. And if it doesn't work, I'm just going to give it another try. And then I'm going to give it another try. You can correlate that into the gym, one more rep. You can correlate that when you're training for a half marathon, let's say, one more mile or maybe one more lap around the track. You can correlate it to anything that you're challenging yourself on purpose on. I'm going to do it one more time and see what comes out on the other side. And my favorite line from Ed Milet is, on the other side of, he says, pain is temporary, and on the other side of pain is massive success. So you just got to continue pushing through. So Ed Milet is my mindset coach.
Love the pick. That is not a surprise to me, as big of an impact as that book had on you. You bring up a good point. A lot of these folks could play in multiple categories, right? There's a lot of utility players here because they're full stack individuals and human beings, quite honestly. So bring up a good point there. And that's a heck of a guy to have rallying the troops and getting a united mindset in place. So love it. All right. Who are you picking next?
I'm going to go with my wild card. I'm going to go with my free pick here. I'm just going to go out and snag this person. All right. So you ever heard of Nicole Lynn?
I have not.
Okay. So Nicole Lynn, let me tell you about her. I think she's 34 years old now. She was the youngest sports agent to sign a client, one of the youngest at 26 years old. She is the agent for Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, who just signed the largest quarterback contract in the NFL in history. So she's 34 years old. She's got a massive success in Jalen Hurts. The guy signs $255 million contract for 5 years extension, so averaging $51 million a year. But what I think is amazing about her is she's the first black woman to represent an NFL draft pick that played in the Super Bowl, number one. But number two, she's in a male-dominated industry, and she is crushing it. She's got other athletes under her belt, and she's the president of Clutch Sports Group. But at 34 years old, already making such a massive impact in her industry when, quite frankly, cards are probably stacked against her. That's someone I want in my corner, and that's someone I want in my team. So Nicole Lynn is doing amazing things in the NFL world. And that's who I'm going with my free pick here.
Great pick, and I'll be definitely hitting Google later today on my Google research list. That to your point, such a tough industry, being a sports agent and needing the right timing and connections, and not to mention the hard work, whether you're male or female. But to have that impact right now, and to be able to represent somebody that is truly defining success for himself too, that's a solid pick, and I look forward to learning more about Nicole. So my free pick. All right, my free pick is actually going to be Brene Brown. Brene Brown, I think she burst on the scene via TED Talk about vulnerability, which, a lot of people, especially in this modern grind culture, hustle culture, view vulnerability as a weakness. She has totally reframed that to how it's a strength, and how you're getting real with yourself, and very, very eloquently backs it up with the science around it. She also wrote a book called Daring Greatly, and another book around leadership, Dare to Lead, I believe that is. And her combination of showing that to be a great leader, you have to remove shame on your past decisions, the things that weigh you down, which I'm big of. You can't, performance. The key to performance, I believe, starts with letting go of the things that no longer serve you, and the mind trash that you have. And shame is one of the lowest vibration energy levels you can level at. Dealing with shame, being vulnerable, and sticking to the mission that you're on to lead people. Brene Brown is a rock star, and to have her on any team I'm building would be just an insane strength.
Yeah, that's a great pick. She's strong, and I love that mindset as well of, you're going to have those ups and downs, and sharing your story and being vulnerable, you'll find out that other people have had very similar experiences, and you start building a community and building a tribe around that. And so that's a great pick. All right, what do you got next?
Next on the list, let's go with our athlete. We'll go with our athlete. And we talked a little bit. I didn't realize after our conversation about whether being dead or alive, so my first pick is going to have to be removed. But because this is a live draft, right? They're going to be competing in the marketplace. We decided that's the mindset we're going to have. Active folks that are building right now. So I'm going to have to go with, probably not a surprise, but Tiger Woods. Not just because of his relentless mindset and what he's succeeded with on the golf course and totally changed a sport. That is the reason I'm picking him. But also the fact that how publicly he has failed, and how much, actually staying on the same theme of shame, Tiger has been able to heal and learn and progress, still come back and win the Masters after everything he was through. Now really stepping into fathership and getting involved with leading the young guys on tour, being a mentor. It's that evolution of the warrior becoming the guide. And he's had such an impact on me. If there's any athlete out there, I'd have to have him on my team.
Yeah, he's great pick, hands down. Changed the entire sport, the way it's ran and way guys train. He's the true athlete of the golf game, and it didn't always used to be that way. And couldn't agree more with that pick. Okay, so I'll follow my next two. I'll start with my athlete. And again, because we did decide that we can't draft quote unquote retired, right? They have to be actively in working on their craft. And so I'm gonna go with Steph Curry as my athlete. As you know, I'm a big basketball guy, but I love Steph Curry because he is such an amazing underdog story. He was not highly recruited coming out of high school. One college looked at him, Davidson, and no one's ever heard of Davidson until Steph Curry started playing for them in that March Madness craziness when he went off and was they were defeating top-ranked schools. I think they went to the Sweet 16 that year. But he's a three-point shooter. He's the greatest three-point shooter of all time in the NBA. He holds all the records. I think he's 36 years old or something like that now. He's going to play until he's 45, just posting up in the corner shooting threes. And now it's interesting though, because he came from an NBA family. His dad, Del Curry, played in the league, and you would think that a guy like that would have, accolades and all the things, coming out, but he really didn't. He was a scrawny dude, and he could just shoot, but he was immature too on the court. Like, he was trying to figure it out. And I think that's really correlates with all of us in life and trying to figure it out and piece it together. We know what our dreams are. We know what our vision of success is and our perception of what that looks like and where we're trying to get, and just putting in the work, and no matter what, don't stop. He was injury prone when he first got drafted by the Warriors. The first 3 or 4 years, he could have given up because he was like, man, my ankles are busted. I can't continue playing. And like I said, here we are. He's owning all the NBA records in shooting and 3 points and whatnot. But there was a show. I can't remember if it was on Netflix or HBO or something like that. I don't know if you caught it. Did you see that show, that documentary about him?
I haven't seen it yet, but there was a quote in the trailer. I watched the entire trailer, and I'm going to watch it, but it looked awesome.
It was an amazing show, and it's a documentary kind of about his come up. But yeah, his mother says, Steph is not out there to prove anybody wrong. He's out there to prove himself right. And I thought that was the coolest thing. It was like, I know what I am. I just got to continue working on it to be able to start seeing it. And it's kind of like that be it until you see it mindset that you talk about. And I love it. Steph Curry, he's the man. He's my athlete pick.
That quote hit home so much, and that closed out the trailer, remember? I think you just gave me goosebumps there, because it's just reframes it, right? It's not about anybody else. It's about what you know you're capable of if you put the work in and keep your eyes on the prize. So love that pick. Had some quick thoughts going through back to another pod about it's kind of would you rather, but with our teams matchup. Tiger and I play you and Steph in basketball, and you and Steph play Tiger and I. I think you guys would have the edge there, given Steph's such a great golfer.
He is a good golfer. I mean, Tiger's obviously better but Steph is better than Tiger in basketball. I think we would have the edge, because I don't know if Tiger can hit a shot. I don't know how athletic he is on the court. I'm sure he's great, but
that knee might be trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, who's up?
All right, so I'm up. I'm gonna stick within the athlete or athletic space, and I'm gonna go with head coach as my next pick. And I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna stick with the world we live in and the times that is really current. Who is hot right now, and who is the biggest inspiration, motivator for his squad, and bringing the most attention. I'm gonna say Coach Prime. The Colorado Buffaloes, Deion Sanders.
I'm sure the listeners haven't heard anything about him.
Yeah, right? Like, he's got his swagger. He's got his style. He comes over from Jackson State, his first head coaching gig in college. He comes over to Colorado, restructures the whole team, cleans house, brings his guys in. But also, he's such a mentor and such a driving force for how to be a strong young man and growing up in what will probably be a lot of those guys in the next level in the NFL. But Coach Prime, you got to love his marketing ability. You got to love his style. You got to love his confidence. Some people don't always like him because he is loud and boisterous. But, I mean, the guy he played multiple major league sports. Did you know 1 week when he was playing, he was on I think it was the Braves or the Cincinnati Reds. I can't remember which team it was. But he was playing in Major League Baseball, had hit a homer. And then that next Sunday, he's playing for, I think it was the Falcons maybe at the time. He's a cornerback for the Falcons and runs a punt return back for a touchdown in a span of 7 days, playing in the MLB and then playing in the NFL. So just a freak athlete. And then to parlay that into coaching, and he's doing some big things over there. So I'm going Coach Prime, cowboy hat, sunglasses and all, throw him on my squad.
And he's changing a bunch of young men's lives, right? Defining success for themselves, showing them that mindset of even beyond basketball, this is your opportunity to show up with discipline, the protocols he's putting in place. That's a heck of a pick and a tough guy to argue against these days. So, okay, head coach. This was kind of a tough one just because you know how much I love old Sean McVay of the Rams, but he's so obsessed and singular focused, which is what I like about him. I don't think that's the team what we're looking for on this team. So I was really giving it some thought. And do you know who Pam Borton is by chance?
No, I don't. Nope.
So Pam Borton is the winningest coach of the University of Minnesota's history. And I've had the privilege of getting to listen to her speak publicly, which was very impactful. But more than that, she's recreated herself as an executive coach and transferred so much of the knowledge from NCAA women's basketball into the corporate arena. And I've single-handedly seen friends that are executives at my organization, closely related, work with her one-on-one, and heard about the impact that she had. And when we talk about looking at blind spots, that's what I think the coach is there for most of the time, is what do I not see? Most of the time, these are highly functioning individuals. And so that's why you hire a coach, is what am I not picking up? What in my universe is in my blind spot? And from what I've heard, Pam is one of the best at this. And she does it in a way that really empowers and allows you to immediately take feedback in and get results. Pam Borton is my head coach, and if you're listening, Pam, I think very highly of you, and you're on the team now. So appreciate all the work that you've done.
Nice. I'll have to look her up and find out more about that. I remember, who was the coach?
Yeah, I think Kim and Kim's sisters would really get a lot from her stuff too.
Oh yeah, I bet you Jackie knows. My sister-in-law, she played D1 basketball. I bet she kind of knows who she was. But who was was it Tennessee, the women's basketball coach, Tennessee, that had like a ton of wins too? They were winning a bunch of stuff. I can't remember her name, but I did not realize that Pam was more winningest than her, and that's pretty interesting.
No, she's not. She's not. We might edit some of this, but she's the winningest at Minnesota.
Oh, I see it. Got it. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Great pick. I love it. I'm gonna look her up, and I love hearing that stuff. So, nice one.
Am I up again?
Yes, sir.
I am going to throw out my actor, and as an actor and wide receiver on this roster, was a tough one, but I went with Chris Hemsworth, and yeah. I mean, he's a modern Viking. You know, he should be suited up for your Minnesota team. Thor. And it really, a lot of it had to do with that Limitless series that I actually picked up a Disney subscription just to watch it. And the work that he's doing, he's a guy that has the looks, he's built the physique and put the work in there, and has had the Hollywood success. And that's where, some folks stop. They can enjoy the trappings of success after that point. But you could tell after watching that series and the people that he's putting himself around, Peter Attia, looking on the fasting portion. He's really, and he was very vulnerable on that show as well, too, right? Talking about his fear of heights, doing all that on camera, pushing his body to the limit, pushing his mind to the limit. I just love to see that when you're at that level, and that's just a guy I want on my team. So he's an actor, Chris Hemsworth, Limitless, modern Viking. He's my wide receiver.
Yeah, he's beast. Yeah, for sure. The Aussie.
He could probably play wide receiver too.
He probably could, or tight end. He's huge. Was he like? He's like 6'8" or something, isn't he?
Yeah, he is huge.
Maybe not that tall, but anyway, he's a great actor, and I like that pick. All right, so I'm up. So I'll follow you with my actor. I'm gonna go with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh man, it was on my list.
Van Wilder. Dude, you remember that movie? Van Wilder, when we grew up watching
one of the
it,
best soundtracks ever. I might listen to that soundtrack when we get off here today.
It's so good, and he's so funny. Like, he started out as like a comedian, kind of a jokester type of actor or whatever, and then he gets into Deadpool and puts a really cool spin on comedic plus superhero type movie, but he was like the bad guy, right? And so anyway, he's a great actor, but the reason why he's on my team is not because of his acting ability, which is great, but it's because he's become a serial entrepreneur, and the things that he's investing in and being the face of, he has have massive success. He's a great businessman, a great entrepreneur, and he surrounds himself around people to continue that success. So let me go down this roster here, if you will, of businesses that he is currently or has already exited that he was invested in. So Aviation Gin, remember those commercials where he's holding up the bottle and it's like it looked great. I'm not a gin guy, but I wanted to try it just because of the commercials. It just looked like like a professional man would drink Aviation Gin, is how it seemed to me. Anyway, so that was great. Maximum Effort's a production marketing agency that he owns. Mint Mobile, remember all those commercials and how cool those looked and fresh, right? He sold Mint Mobile. The company sold, and then he got his stake, but they sold it to T-Mobile for $1.35 billion this year, 2023. Then he also is invested in Wealthsimple, a Canadian wealth management company, which Ryan Reynolds is Canadian, so a lot of this stuff is tied back to Canadian-based. And then Nuvei is a global fintech company that he's a part of. Like, he's all over the place, but he's diving in to diversifying his portfolio of businesses he's investing in all different industries. Then he gets into the athletics. Part owner of Wrexham AFC, which is soccer football, right? And then they just won, I think, a tournament to get them into like the big leagues. He's a F1 team Alpine, F1 racing team, and then he's part of a group that's bidding for Ottawa Senators in hockey right now. So I love Ryan Reynolds as an actor, but I love him even more because his business acumen and what he's doing on the side. He now says, if you looked at his, I can't remember what it is now. I'll have to look back. Maybe I'll look it up right now and I'll come back on the pod on it. But in his LinkedIn profile, I think it says business owner, part-time actor. And I thought that was the coolest thing for like someone who's well known for acting to have that kind of shift in title.
That's the other thing, is he's hilarious.
Right.
He doesn't take it himself too seriously. I'm sure he takes those businesses seriously, but that combination's rare. Great pick. I also loved, he's a marketing genius, right? He was keeping a pulse on, because he's so involved with social media and Hollywood and what the talk of the town is, he was able to take for one of the Aviator commercials right after Peloton had a huge issue with one of their commercial actors.
Oh yeah.
She was the gal that got a Peloton for Christmas from her husband, and that got a bunch of backlash. He jumped on the wagon to get her in one of the aviation gin commercials and played off of it because it's free marketing and he knew the eyes it would get. So just a marketing genius. Great pick. That was on my list, and that was a big pickup for the team.
Yeah, so I just checked his LinkedIn. It says part-time actor, business owner. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ryan Reynolds. My next pick, I'm going to go with my sleeper. As you go down in your fantasy football draft, you might have to pick a rookie or an underdog or someone that might come burst on the scene. You don't know. I'm going to go with my creator. And you may, I don't know, maybe you've heard of this guy or not, but have you heard of Jay Klaus?
I have not.
So Jay Klaus, he's my creator. And by definition, a creator is someone who's putting stuff out into the marketplace. And he literally runs a business called Creator Science, purely to help other creators be better creators. So I don't know how you can have another guy in that spot who's the definition of a creator, but the reason why he's a sleeper and underdog is because he's not some of these big names that we've been talking about, and not a lot of people know about him. But he's got 40,000 email subscribers for the Creator Science newsletter. He builds his brand on YouTube. He's got a podcast, and he's also got a membership community called The Lab that he has an exclusive community that you can be a part of to learn how to develop your creator business. And he's totally transparent with how he does it. He shares his tools. He shares his methods. He shares his marketing. He shares his sales. Like, he's totally open with everything that he does. So, Jay, if you're listening, I would love to connect with you, brother. You've been an impact on my life and how I'm trying to add some more creator aspects into what I'm doing with my email newsletter, OPPO Flow Storybook, as well as this podcast, Success Flow. Picked up some nuggets, and he's going to be my guy, my sleeper pick creator, Jay Klaus.
I love it. I'm not familiar, but you've given me some homework to do to level up myself, so I'm looking forward to checking out his material. That's what we're doing right now, trying to create, trying to put something out in the world with the information that we've gathered, so it sounds super relevant. I think that's the last pick, isn't it?
Yeah, you got creator and then author. We'll bring it home with our author.
So my creator is not a sleeper by any means, but had to go with him because when you talk about being able to take the things that light your fire and only focus on those things and create a living doing it, Joe Rogan has been able to do that. He works his tail off, but it's only on things that he's absolutely obsessed with. And he talks about how he thought he was a failure and something was wrong with him and he was a loser, is what he says, back in the day before he found martial arts. And then comedy. These very difficult things that he got obsessed with, and now is one of the wealthiest people in media, just doing the things that he loves. So when it comes to creation and being able to put your passions out into the world, but still maintain a super solid work ethic and discipline, Joe Rogan's my guy. He's a big reason why I wanted to jump on this project with you, and that's my creator. Not a sleeper, but love the guy. So transitioning to the last pick, I almost forgot about author, but this is going to be a repeat for the audience, but I don't care. I figured I'd have to go with the guy whose books I have all of them. Even one called A Small Furry Prayer that has nothing to do with flow or performance. Bought that one for Paula, but it's Stephen Kotler. And Stephen Kotler has written Rise of Superman, Art of the Impossible, Stealing Fire, these books that have really changed my life and how I approach my work. And he's built it by showing up and just writing and doing the work every day and getting into flow state and being around the best minds studying flow state. And he doesn't have a science background, but he's become a neuroscience expert. Kotler is going to raise everybody on his team up, and he has a very high demand for that. And that's the kind of author I want on my team and why Stephen Kotler's my guy.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I'm not surprised by either one of those, Joe Rogan or Stephen Kotler, for you. So thanks for bringing us home on that one. Kotler has inspired you into the flow state and all that good stuff and all the research and everything, which has in turn inspired me to continue building those habits into my life. And when you can achieve and build habits and routines and do all of that in a flow state mindset, when you do that in flow, man, it just brings out a massive action and success and things that you're working on. You see the progress, and that's what gives you peak motivation. And Kotler talks a lot about that in his books. So thank you for turning me on to him. So speaking of habits, I'll bring us home with author, because I might have given it away here, but I'm going with James Clear in the book Atomic Habits. I know you've read that one. If you're a listener, if you're listening to this and you have not picked up Atomic Habits, this has to be in your library. Pick it up on Audible or snag one, and if you're a physical book reader. But I picked this one up, and it's like a guidebook for how to eliminate bad habits and add and progress towards good habits. When you make a decision that you want to make change in your life, James Clear makes it super clear, no pun intended, on how to incorporate those changes. It's not all at once. It's the 1% changes that compound over time on a daily basis, where you're not even seeing the results until all of a sudden 6 months from now, a year from now, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like I've been putting in the work, and now I like going from back then a year ago to where I'm at now. It's incredible. And he uses this analogy of, let's say you're flying a plane and the heading is facing right towards New York. Now, let's say I shift that heading from LAX to New York 3.5 degrees, and I take the plane and I fly the plane all the way across the country. I end up in Washington, D.C., 200 miles away. And so he paints this picture of a minuscule, very small shift in where you're going can take you to a whole nother place. And I think it's really important for us all to remember that it's not that far of a shift that we need to make in order to change the trajectory of our life and where we want to go. And that book has made such an impact on me. So my author, and James Clear, by the way, he was like New York Times bestseller, 15 million copies, and it was his freaking first book. Like, he's just wildly successful on the first write. Like, every aspiring author could only hope for that. And so he crushes it. And I didn't know this. I was doing some research on him. You'll like this. Maybe you knew it. But he was a performance coach for athletes and executives way before he was a public speaker and an author. And I thought that was cool because he was able to leverage those stories, and he was doing the work. And then he wrote the book and shared it with everyone. So James Clear, my pick, could be a homer pick, if you will, because I talk about Atomic Habits and have built it so much in my life. But I think that's the draft. I love my squad. I know you love your squad. We'll see how it shakes out. But that was a lot of fun. Thanks for bringing up the idea.
I love it too. I for the audience, if you're going to go through this exercise, and the mindset behind this was have people that you may not be able to talk to, hopefully you will someday, but a group of people that I actually like to pretend that I'm sitting in a room with these individuals to bring up problems to, think about my day, and what their responses would be, because your brain has an idea of how their brain works or how you think it works, which is why you follow them. And if you can sit with that, bring problems to them and sit in silence, your brain is automatically going to be working on those and give you kind of an idea. It sounds a little out there, but it goes back to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, having a mastermind. And if you don't have a mastermind in person, which we highly recommend, you can create this by yourself and sit with them. Thanks again for listening. Draft your own models of excellence, roster, and we'll be back at you next week.